What happens when a beloved daytime television host faces off against royalty who refuses to play by the rules? In just 34 seconds, one comment would turn a friendly interview into the most shocking moment in talk show history. The Kelly Clarkson Show had welcomed countless celebrities through its doors. Kelly had built her reputation on warmth, authenticity, and genuine conversations that made even the biggest stars feel at home. Her audience loved her because she was real, down to earth, and always respectful. But nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold on this particular afternoon. Prince Harry walked onto the stage with an air of confidence that seemed to fill the entire studio. The audience applauded politely as he took his seat across from Kelly. She greeted him with her signature bright smile, ready to have what she assumed would be a pleasant conversation. "Welcome to the show," Kelly said warmly. "We're so excited to have you here today." Harry nodded, settling into his chair with a casual demeanor that bordered on dismissive. "Thank you for having me," he replied, though his tone lacked the enthusiasm Kelly was accustomed to hearing from her guests. Kelly dove into her first question, asking about his recent charitable initiatives. It was a softball question, the kind designed to let guests share their passions and connect with the audience. But Harry's response was clipped, almost irritated. "Well, Kelly, I think the work speaks for itself," he said. "I don't really need to explain what I do to people who should already be paying attention." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. Kelly, ever the professional, smiled through the slight and moved forward. "Of course," she said graciously. "I think a lot of people are curious about your transition to life in America. What has that been like for you?" Harry leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "It's been enlightening, to say the least. You know, coming from a place of such tradition and responsibility, it's interesting to see how casual everything is here." Kelly's smile remained fixed, but her eyes showed a flicker of confusion. "Casual in what way?" "Oh, you know," Harry continued, waving his hand dismissively. "The way people conduct themselves, the lack of formality, the way interviewers ask questions without really understanding the weight of who they're speaking to." The air in the studio grew thick with tension. Kelly straightened in her seat, maintaining her composure with remarkable grace. "I see," she said carefully. "Well, I always try to approach every guest with respect and genuine curiosity." "Do you?" Harry asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because some of these questions feel rather beneath the conversation we should be having." Kelly took a breath, her professional mask still firmly in place. "I'm sorry you feel that way. What kind of conversation would you prefer to have?" "Something with substance," Harry replied. "Something that acknowledges the significance of my presence here. I mean, do you understand the rarity of this? A member of the royal family sitting on your show?" The audience was dead silent now. Kelly's crew exchanged worried glances from behind the cameras. This was not going according to plan. "I absolutely appreciate you being here," Kelly said, her voice still kind, but gaining a subtle edge of firmness. "And I think our audience does too. But every guest who comes on this show, regardless of their background, is treated with the same respect and warmth." "The same respect," Harry repeated, almost mockingly. "So you're telling me you'd treat me the same way you'd treat some pop star promoting their latest single?" Kelly's smile finally faded. "Yes, actually. Because on this show, we celebrate people for who they are, not just their titles or their status." "How very democratic of you," Harry said with a smirk. "Though I have to wonder if you truly understand the difference between someone who has earned their platform and someone who was simply born into it." "Born into it?" Kelly's tone shifted. The warmth was gone, replaced by something steely. "Are you suggesting that I haven't earned my place here?" Harry shrugged. "I'm simply pointing out that we come from very different worlds, Kelly. You sing songs. I was raised to lead." The audience gasped audibly. Kelly sat back in her chair, processing what had just been said to her on her own show. "Wow," she said quietly. Okay. Don't take it personally, Harry added, which only made things worse. I'm sure you're very good at what you do. It's just not quite the same level of importance, is it? Kelly's jaw tightened. Years of live television experience kept her from exploding, but her patience was clearly wearing thin. Let me ask you something, Kelly said, her voice calm but pointed. Do you think talking down to people makes you seem more important? Because from where I'm sitting, it just makes you seem insecure. Harry's expression darkened. Excuse me? You heard me, Kelly continued, finding her footing. I've interviewed presidents, activists, artists, scientists, and, yes, even other members of royal families, and not one of them felt the need to remind me of their importance. Because truly important people don't have to. How dare you, Harry said, leaning forward. Do you have any idea who you're speaking to? A guest on my show who seems to have forgotten his manners, Kelly replied without missing a beat. Look, I get it. You've been through a lot. But that doesn't give you the right to come onto my stage and belittle me or what I do. Harry stood up abruptly. This is absurd. I don't have to sit here and be lectured by a talk show host. You're right, you don't, Kelly said, also standing. But you do have to show basic respect if you want to be here. Basic respect? Harry laughed bitterly. This is exactly what I was talking about. The lack of understanding about protocol, about hierarchy. Kelly crossed her arms. There's no hierarchy here. This is my show. These are my rules. And rule number 1 is kindness. Your rules, Harry scoffed. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds? I'm a prince. And I'm a host who's worked incredibly hard to build something meaningful, Kelly shot back. Something that brings joy to millions of people. Something that doesn't require a crown or a title. Just heart. The audience began to applaud, softly at first, then growing louder. Harry looked around, seemingly shocked that they were supporting Kelly over him. This is unbelievable, he muttered. What's unbelievable, Kelly said, her voice rising slightly, is that you thought you could come here and treat me like I'm less than you. Like my work doesn't matter. Like my audience doesn't deserve better. I never said that, Harry protested. You didn't have to, Kelly countered. Every word out of your mouth has been dripping with condescension since you sat down, and honestly, I'm done with it. Harry's face flushed red. You're done with it? I'm the one who should be offended here. Then by all means be offended, Kelly said, gesturing toward the exit. But do it somewhere else. The studio fell into stunned silence. No one could believe what they were hearing. Kelly Clarkson, known for her kindness and warmth, was essentially asking a prince to leave her show. Are you asking me to leave? Harry stammered, clearly not used to being dismissed. I'm saying this interview is over, Kelly clarified. You're welcome to leave with dignity, or security can help you find the door. Your choice. Harry looked around desperately, as if waiting for someone to intervene on his behalf. But Kelly's crew stood firm, and her audience continued their supportive applause. This is outrageous, Harry said, his voice shaking with anger and embarrassment. Wait until people hear about this. They're hearing about it right now, Kelly said, pointing to the cameras. We're live. And what they're hearing is that on this show, nobody gets to be a bully. Not even royalty. Harry's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He clearly wanted to say something cutting, something that would put Kelly in her place, but the words wouldn't come. You know what? He finally said, straightening his jacket. I don't need this. I have better things to do than waste my time with someone who clearly doesn't appreciate the opportunity she's been given. The opportunity I've been given? Kelly repeated, incredulous. You do realize you came on my show, right? Not the other way around? Harry ignored her, turning toward the exit. But before he could take more than a few steps, Kelly spoke again. Harry! She called out. He stopped but didn't turn around. I really did want this to be a good conversation. I wanted to hear about your work, your life, the things that matter to you, but you made that impossible. He turned slightly, just enough for her to see his profile. Maybe you weren't asking the right questions. Or maybe you weren't interested in having a real conversation, Kelly replied. Maybe you just wanted a platform to feel superior. And that's not what we do here. For a moment, Harry seemed like he might respond, might engage in actual dialogue. But instead, he simply shook his head and continued toward the exit. I came here in good faith, he said over his shoulder. No, Kelly corrected gently but firmly. You came here expecting to be worshipped. There's a difference. Harry paused at the edge of the stage, his hand gripping the curtain. The audience was silent again, waiting to see what would happen next. You'll regret this, Harry said quietly, but loudly enough for the microphones to pick up. Kelly walked to the front of her stage, standing tall and confident. The only thing I regret is not standing up for myself sooner. I let you talk down to me, to my work, to my audience, but I'm done apologizing for not bowing. I never asked you to bow, Harry protested weakly. Yes, you did, Kelly said. With every dismissive comment, every condescending look, every time you reminded me of your title. That's exactly what you were asking for. Harry's shoulders sagged slightly. For just a moment, he looked less like a defiant prince and more like someone who had badly miscalculated. I think we're simply from different worlds, he said, attempting to salvage some dignity. We are, Kelly agreed. I'm from a world where people are valued for their character, their kindness, and their contributions, not just their last name. The audience erupted in applause again, this time even louder. Harry flinched at the sound, clearly stung by their rejection. Goodbye, Harry, Kelly said firmly. I hope you find an interview that meets your standards. Harry opened his mouth as if to deliver one final retort, but thought better of it. Instead, he simply turned and walked off the stage, disappearing behind the curtain. The studio door could be heard slamming moments later. Kelly stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then she turned to her audience with a slightly bewildered expression. Well, she said, breaking into a genuine smile. That was unexpected. The audience laughed, the tension finally breaking. Kelly walked back to her chair and sat down, taking a deep breath. You know, she continued, I've been doing this for a long time. And I've always believed that everyone deserves kindness and respect, but I've also learned that respect goes both ways. Her audience applauded again, clearly proud of how she had handled the situation. I don't care if you're a prince or a pauper, Kelly went on. If you come on this show, you treat people right. You don't get to make others feel small just because you think you're bigger. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes sincere and strong. To everyone watching at home, I want you to know something. Your value isn't determined by your title, or your status, or how many people bow to you. Your value comes from how you treat others, how you show up in the world, and whether you make it better or worse by being in it. The studio audience rose to their feet, giving Kelly a standing ovation. She smiled, genuine warmth returning to her face. And on that note, she said with a laugh, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have a guest who actually wants to be here and knows how to have a conversation. The cameras cut as the show went to commercial. Behind the scenes, Kelly's producers rushed to her side, concerned about the fallout from what had just transpired. But Kelly waved off their worries. It's fine, she assured them. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even if it's uncomfortable. One of her producers mentioned that Harry's team was already demanding the footage be cut from the broadcast. Absolutely not, Kelly said firmly. We're live. People saw it. And more importantly, it happened. We're not going to pretend it didn't. She stood up, smoothing out her dress and preparing for the next segment. Besides, she added with a wry smile, I think people need to see that it's okay to set boundaries. even with royalty. As the commercial break ended and the cameras prepared to roll again, Kelly took her place back on stage. The audience was still buzzing with energy from what they had witnessed. All right, Kelly said, calming them down with a gentle wave. Let's get back to what we do best, celebrating people who make the world brighter. And with that, the show continued. But everyone in that studio knew they had witnessed something significant. A moment where kindness met its limit and dignity drew its line. Kelly had shown that being nice didn't mean being a doormat, that warmth didn't require accepting disrespect, and that sometimes the bravest thing a host could do was show a difficult guest the exit. The interview that was supposed to be a friendly chat had turned into a masterclass in self-respect, and while Harry had walked off that stage in anger and embarrassment, Kelly remained, having proven that true class isn't about titles or crowns. It's about how you treat people when the cameras are rolling and when they're not. It's about standing firm in your values, even when challenged by someone who thinks their position makes them untouchable. Kelly Clarkson had faced down a prince and won, not because she was cruel or vindictive, but because she refused to compromise her dignity or the dignity of her show. The audience that day left with more than just entertainment. They left with a lesson. That respect is earned through behavior, not birth. That kindness has limits, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply say enough. As the show wrapped up that afternoon, Kelly thanked her audience as she always did, with genuine appreciation and warmth. But there was something extra in her voice that day, a strength that came from knowing she had done the right thing, even when it was hard. She had invited a guest into her home, metaphorically speaking, and when that guest proved to be rude and dismissive, she had politely but firmly shown them the door. There was nothing wrong with that. In fact, it was everything right. The incident would be talked about for days, weeks, even months to come. But through it all, one thing remained clear. Kelly Clarkson had handled it with grace, strength, and an unwavering commitment to her values. She didn't need a crown to be royal. She just needed to be herself. And that, as her audience knew, was more than enough. The show had gone on without Harry, and it had been wonderful. Because at the end of the day, the Kelly Clarkson show wasn't about who sat in the guest chair. It was about the woman who sat in the host chair, and the love and respect she brought to every conversation. Well, almost every conversation. Some guests just couldn't handle being treated as equals rather than superiors. And that was their problem, not hers. Kelly had learned long ago that you can't please everyone, but you can stay true to yourself. You can stand up when it matters, and you can show the world that kindness and strength aren't opposites. They're partners. As the studio lights dimmed and the crew began packing up, Kelly reflected on the day's events. Part of her felt bad about how things had unfolded. She never wanted conflict, but another part of her felt proud. Proud that she had drawn a line. Proud that she had protected her space and her audience from someone who wanted to use the platform for ego rather than connection. Proud that she had shown young people watching that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even against a prince, especially against a prince who had forgotten that titles don't excuse bad behavior. The interview that never finished had somehow said more than a complete conversation ever could. It had revealed character on both sides. One person demanding deference, the other offering dignity. One person expecting the world to bow, the other simply asking for basic respect. And in that clash of expectations, Kelly had emerged as exactly who her audience always knew her to be. Someone real. Someone strong. Someone who wouldn't compromise her values for anyone, not for ratings, not for prestige, not even for royalty. The Kelly Clarkson Show would continue, as it always had, being a beacon of warmth and authenticity in daytime television. But now it would also be known as the show where kindness had teeth, where niceness had boundaries, where even a prince learned that respect isn't given based on birthright alone. It had to be earned. Through words, through actions, through treating others as equals rather than subjects. Harry had failed that test spectacularly, but in doing so, he had given Kelly the opportunity to pass her own test with flying colors. The test of standing firm when pressured, of speaking truth when challenged, of protecting her house when someone tried to disrespect it. And she had passed beautifully. As Kelly finally left the studio that evening, she knew tomorrow would bring questions, headlines, and probably controversy. But she also knew she could face it all with her head held high, because she had done nothing wrong. She had simply refused to be diminished. And there was profound power in that refusal. The prince had left the building in disgrace, but the host remained, stronger than ever, ready for whatever came next. Because that's what real strength looks like. Not a crown, not a title, just a person who knows their worth and refuses to let anyone take it away. Not in 34 seconds. Not ever.